Hi guys, this is Juno and welcome back to another Summoners War video. Today I have an informative video because I want to explain the importance of speed tuning and how early game players and even some mid game players ignore the fact on how important it is to apply that to your offense creation. And when I say offense, I'm not just talking about arena offenses, I'm also talking about RTA, the team itself. It is much harder for RTA because you could have a variety of different teams. But when you play with an RTA team, there are certain units that you're going to pick as a core unit in most cases. So it is good to practice to try and tune everything around those units. And also for some offense teams in Siege or guild battles in general. Again, I see a lot of this issue with early game players and mid game players. They don't know combat speed, and sometimes they don't understand why the opponent units cut. They question, hey, my Bastet moved first. I did the boost. Why isn't my Lucian moving? Hey, my Tiana moved. Why isn't my Pungbek moving? So on and so forth. After this video, I'm hoping that people that don't have JSON files, doesn't matter, just with the work of an optimizer and using the speed tuner, you'll have a team that will most likely never get cut, unless the one exception where there are nemesis units. And in that case, if you hit it hard enough and if they are fast enough, they still can cut. Reason why aerials are still very, very popular in arena defense. And you can see that I'm using one myself. This defense rate that I have in C2, 50.7%, this is much more effective if the opponent comes in with a team that is not truly tuned. So I'm hoping that after you guys watch this video, you guys know how to tune your team so that you have more success with your arena rushes, with your RTA teams, and also with your guild battle teams in general. So the very first thing that you have to just get from your account is the level of your speed tower. Now, if you go to shop, obviously mine will be max leveled, but for some people, it'll be less. Remember this percentage, because this is the number that you'll be putting in the optimizer. Again, you do not need your JSON file. You could create all the units that you have through the optimizer, and then you could manually input the speed that you are using to find the speeds that you need for your other units in the team. After you know that, you'll go into your optimizer. Now in the optimizer, currently it already has an old data of my JSON file. So if I go to monsters, you can see that there's a good number of units on the list. However, if you do not have a JSON file, let's say you never uploaded one before, this should be blank. And again, that is totally fine. If you look here on this side right here, there's something called create monster. Let's use a Tiana team as an example. So I'm going to create a Tiana, right? You could either create a random unit, however you like it, if you want to put in all the numbers yourself. But if you look at the right side, there are already pre-created units in the game. So I can find Tiana and click on create. I am not going to do this because I already have the Tiana on my JSON file. But if you don't have a JSON file and if you need all the units that you want to use, please put in the Tiana, the Galleon, the Zeros, and the Pungbek, because that is what we'll be using as today's example. You'll go through this 4 times. You'll find the Tiana, you'll find the Galleon, Zeros, and Pungbek, and just click on create. And once you do that, there'll be 4 units in this list. And after that, you'll go to the speed tune tab and you'll see a display like this. It tells you to pick your team. And like I said, I'll pick a Tiana. It shows up. I'll pick a Galleon. I have 3, I'll just pick one from random. You could pick, we'll pick a Zeros and then a Pungbek. If you look at the top combat speed, right, you can see that Tiana is 312, the Galleon is 262, the Zeros is 260, and the Pungbek is 257. So it is from fastest to slowest, and that's great because I do want the Tiana to move first, I do want the Galleon to move second, I do want the Zeros to move third, and I do want the Pungbek to move fourth. But what you have to keep in mind is the speed minimum. So you can see right now my Tiana is 297 speed. And if my Tiana is 297 speed, with the 30% boost, The Galleon with the Tiana boost, minimum could be 244 speed. And that's great because my Galleon in-game has a speed of 245 speed. So it is 1 speed faster than the minimum speed. If I was 240 speed, that means there's a gap. And through that gap, if the opponent defense unit is faster, for some reason if there's a Nemesis set, and if it sneaked into our tick, then it could have cut. And we don't want that. So you have to make sure that your speed is at least meeting, your in-game speed is at least meeting the speed minimum. After that, you check the next unit and do the same thing. Zeros, it tells me the speed minimum should be 244 speed, but speed in-game is 245 speed. And if you look at the combat speed again, you have to make sure the top, there has to be a difference. If my Zeros was 1 speed faster, it's fine because the combat speed is 261 speed, which is still 1 speed slower than the Galleon. But if it was 1 speed more faster, now it tells us that they are the same speed and the slot order decides who goes first. And in this team, usually Zeros is in the very top slot, which gives us the lead because Zeros has an attack lead. That makes him slot 1. That means that he will go in front of the Galleon. And we don't want that, so you see that there's a boundary, right? You have to have a Zeros that is at least 244 speed and at max 246 speed to get a Zeros that's moving right after the Galleon. But mine was 245 speed, so that's all good. And it finally goes to the last unit as well, the Pung Beck. The minimum speed is 242 speed. My speed in-game is 241 speed, so that is a no-no. I have a 1 speed difference, which means that there is a chance that the opponent could cut. It has a bigger chance actually that the opponent could cut. And this goes to Mollies, Junos, Ariels. I have seen multiple times Molly actually cutting and going for skill 1, and sometimes it actually stripped my Pung Beck's attack buff. And now I know why. It's because I have this gap. It tells us that it needs to be at least 242 speed, but my Pung Beck currently is 241 speed. So if I make this 242, you can see that the combat speed is 258, which is still 2 speeds slower than Zeros, which is good. But if it becomes 245, then you can see this 1 speed faster. The combat speed is 1 speed faster, meaning that it will go in front of the Zeros, which we don't want. So we know that the Pung Beck should be between 242 speed and 244 speed. It tells us on speed 244, they have the same speed, slot order decides, but that is fine because usually when you build a team, the Pung Beck is at the last slot. So in this case, the Pung Beck will move last. But mine is currently 241 speed, which is wrong. So I have to go fix that. Let's assume that you didn't have any of these speed in-game stuff, right? Let's say your channel speed is 280, but if you look at it, the speed minimum is 227, okay? So you'll have to find a build where the Galleon is at least 227 speed. And with that, the combat speed is 242. At this point, it's all fine. I'm gonna see where it changes, okay? I'm gonna show you guys where it changes once the speed tower number changes. So Zeros, again, the minimum speed has to be 227. So let's say you find the build that's 227. Combat speed is 2 different. Finding the Pung Beck, it says speed in-game is 226. Sorry, the speed minimum is 226. So you have to get the speed in-game to 226. Again, it's the same speed with Zeros, so slot order decides, but that's fine. In this team, Zeros is in the top slot and Pung Beck is in the last slot. You'll see what changes when I change the speed tower. Look at the combat speed number. So if I change the 13 to 15, you could see that the combat speed went up by 2 for each of these units. It looks okay for now. Let's say if I go lower, 10, it looks okay for now, and 8, okay. So in this case, the speed tower doesn't really matter because we're not actually using a speed lead. But for example, let's say Galleon was a speed lead, okay? So let's say I click on use speed lead of 24%. This is for guild content, but let's assume that we have a 24 speed lead for arena. When we do that, you can see that their combat speed all went up. But now, if I change this 8 to 15, look at this right here. See how the Pung Beck became faster than the Zeros. It's because the base speed of Pung Beck is greater than the Zeros, and the 15% affects that And now Pengbeck becomes 1 speed faster than the Zeros, and in this case you have to change your build where the Pengbeck is 1 speed slower in game, so that again we get the same speed error and or warning, and the slot order decides. In this case, Pengbeck is the last slot, so Pengbeck will move last. So you have to know how to use these things. If you have a speed lead, make sure you have this clicked, depending on the content that you're playing. If you don't have a speed lead, that's great. Just turn everything off, and only thing matters is the unit that's moving first. This might be a little harder, especially if you're creating a team that has no attack bar boost, because in that case, everybody has to be 1 combat speed apart for them to not get cut. And that was shown in one of my Gemini videos, in my Gemini AO. I think this is the easiest way to get your team tuned. You don't need your JSON file, you just need this tool. This tool can be done through the web, because I believe there's a Summoners War Optimizer web version. Or you could just download it from Microsoft. There's a free version. It offers all of this calculation for free. Again, the first thing you do, if you don't have a JSON file, is just to create your monsters that you'll be using in your offense or in your team. It could be for RTA, it could be for your regular arena, or it could be for your guild battles. Then you just go to the Speed Tune tab, add all your units, put their speed, or at least put your Tiana speed, put your Bastet speed, put the speed of the unit that is moving first, and then depending on that speed, it will tell you what the units needs to be to move next. For example, if I wanted my Galleon to move third, I could click on this to know what speed my Galleon needs to be to move on this order, whereas the Zeros now needs to be a little faster to move right after the Tiana and not get caught. You can see the speed minimum got updated to 228, so I have to actually give the Zeros 1 more speed. Some people make the Tiana team like this. They do. Just because they want to deal with Halfis is better, or even the Abilios better, because with the reset, the Zeros does not do enough damage because he does not have attack buff, he does not have defense break, so none of the passives get triggered, and it becomes easier for Pengbeck to wipe the team. There's nobody cutting in, right? So there's no chances that it could go wrong. However, if you do it this way, there is a chance that you'll lack damage, and if Pengbeck does not wipe out a unit, then it could get a little weird. So depending on how you run this team, you could do it this way, or you could do it this way. And this works for any other team that you want to create, a Bastet team, a Gemini team. But you have to keep in mind that the combat speed needs to be in order. Also, the speed minimum needs to be met. That's the actually most important thing. If the speed minimum is not met by the speed in-game numbers, then that means that there's a chance that you'll get cut when you're using this team. But that was it, guys. I hope after watching this video, you guys know how to tune your units. There's a very good tool, the Summoners War Optimizer, that will do all the calculations for you to get the correct speeds. If you guys watched till now, please like and subscribe. Also, if you want to watch more work, more content, or get an account review, please join my Patreon. And I'll see you guys next time.